Hello and welcome to Liberty Nation's Liberty Nation TV. I'm your host Mark Angelides, and today we're joined by Tim Donner to talk about, of all things, Trumpism, Reaganism, McCarthyism. These are political words that have entered the common parlance recently, well, over the last several decades. But what we're going to find out is, what do they really mean? Do they have any connotations for the future? Thanks for joining us, Tim.
My pleasure, as always, Mark.
So, first question, McCarthyism, Reaganism, Trumpism, or Trumpist. Why do you think these particular presidents get a whole ism named after them? What does it reflect?
Well, I think it reflects a couple of things. The first is a personality that overpowers policy, even. A Trump, big personality. Reagan, big personality. Joe McCarthy, big personality, although unenviable in so many ways, of course. But also, I think the isms come, Mark, when there's a fundamental policy shift, a major shift in policy. As with Reagan, Reaganism was a change from the traditional liberal democratic view of what foreign policy should be and how we should take on the Soviet Union and try to end communism as opposed to just live with it. That's a distinct policy shift. Trumpism is a distinct policy shift, to be sure, from one end of the world to the other, from North Korea to the trade showdown with China to taking on NATO and forcing them to pay their fair share. That's a dramatic change. So I think these isms come largely, Mark, when there's a dramatic shift in policy.
So I guess that would explain why other presidents have failed to get the accolade, as it were. We don't hear Obamism or Bushist. Now, is it just because they're not catchy sounding, or is it because they failed to have a policy impact that spans a period of time?
Well, I think you get sort of a light version of Trumpism or Reaganism when you refer, as historians have, to the Obama Doctrine and the Bush Doctrine. Now, that defines the presidency to some degree, but it doesn't mean a dramatic shift in policy. So the Obama Doctrine essentially was leading from behind. It was that America could still be a leader without being a leader, as oxymoronic as that sounds. The Bush Doctrine was that if any government enabled or served as a collaborator with terrorist groups that committed acts of terrorism, that they would be held responsible and there would be no difference between those who perpetrated the acts and those who supported them. So Bush and Obama get doctrines, but Reagan and Trump get the isms at the end.
Okay, I mean, we can look back now and we can define what McCarthyism is. And, you know, it's hindsight. It allows us to see that. And right now, I feel that we're only really just getting to grips with what Reaganism was. And we're seeing the fruits and the positives and the negatives of Reaganism. We're seeing them still today. How do you think the future will look back on Trumpism? Will it be a favorable viewpoint? Will it be castigated throughout history? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that what Trumpism and Reaganism have in common is the ability to break out of the box and make an argument that others weren't making. I mean, it was expected when Reagan became president that we would live with communism and we'd live with a consistent policy of containing communism. But when Reagan came in, he said, I don't want to contain it. I want to destroy it. And even Mark, many people in his own administration didn't believe that was possible. They were happy to do a more severe form of containment. But Reagan said, no, we can do this. Just like Trump has come in and said that North Korea negotiations haven't worked over 3 presidencies. The situation with China, they've been eating our lunch, taking advantage of us, stealing our intellectual property for years. And Trump came in and said, we're not going to do this anymore. So I think there is a real connection between Reaganism and Trumpism. And it does come in the form, I think, if you want to look at foreign policy, that as much as Reagan was considered some kind of war hawk, he essentially won the Cold War without firing a shot. Think about that. And Trump would love to have the same outcome, that he could keep the world contained without firing a shot, because he also believes that that America has to come first in foreign policy, in our policies towards the world, as Reagan did. Reagan was an America firster just as much as Trump was. He just didn't use exactly the same rhetoric.
Okay. I mean, do you see any of the Democratic Party candidates that are in the race at the moment? Do you see any of them being radical enough or seismic enough in their plans for change to get an ism? I mean, we have Bernie Sanders will obviously get a socialism, but that's not a new thing for him.
Well, I think what we're going to get out of this, the new ism, Mark, I think will be the new ism, same as the old ism, except with a word added, and that's democratic socialism. So what that means is that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris and the other radicals in the Democratic presidential field, they don't want you to think of Cuba and Venezuela when they say socialism. They want you to think of Sweden and Denmark and essentially most of the European Union, right? They want you to think of soft socialism, which is a hard argument to make when we see Venezuela sitting on an ocean of oil, and yet their economy tanking, hyperinflation taking over, people fleeing the country. So I guess democratic socialism, to add the adjective to the traditional word. The question is whether the voters will believe there's any difference between the two.
And that is a great point to end on. Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you, Mark.
And thank you at home for watching. If you enjoyed this video, remember to press the like and subscribes down below, or you can just head over to libertynation.com, where we've got great radio, TV, podcasts, and of course our special articles, in-depth, well-reasoned and well-written. Thanks for watching.